on the problem here and certainly look into how they can stop something like this happening again in future.
Jess, thank you so much for bringing us up to date there from Washington. Now, Ronald Chapman II is a federal defense attorney and former Marine Corps judge advocate. He joins us now live from Detroit. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the program. Just break down the actual charge for us, because I understand he has been charged with espionage, but just what that means, and then, of course, in terms of sentencing, what that looks like.
Absolutely. The charges are very simple. He's been charged with essentially disseminating classified information and removing classified information. I believe, as was mentioned previously, the total sentencing exposure here would be something like 15 years in jail. Now, what I would expect out of this case, where the evidence seems pretty clear, this was posted on public social media sites, I would expect a quick plea and some sort of cooperation, which means he may be able to lessen that sentence a little bit by providing the government information about other people who may have also disseminated the same information.
I suppose it begs the question as well about how someone goes through a level of security clearance to get to the point where they then have access to this kind of classified information.
This is the very concerning question here. So before anybody gets a top secret security clearance, there needs to be a very thorough background information. I understand, and even the quick background investigation that has been done on him since the charges, people have learned that his schoolmates and his friends thought he acted weird and he was bizarre. That information should have been discovered by the FBI while doing that background check, and consideration should have been made as to whether or not he should receive a top secret security clearance. I understand he was involved in cyber operations, which would have given him a pretty high level of access to this information. Even further, people can only access classified information in an area that they need to know that information. And before we give somebody the keys to the entire kingdom of classified information, we need to ensure that they have a solid background and history of protecting that type of information.
Can you just give us a rundown of what steps someone has to go through to get that kind of security clearance?
Certainly. Once you become a member of the military, in this case, the National Guard, you would have to sign a non-disclosure agreement that is in effect for life, that you will not misuse or disclose classified information. You'd also need to go through frequent classified information training, and you would be constantly reminded about the parameters and the control of that information. Then a background check would be done where your family, friends, colleagues, prior coworkers would be interviewed, and then that would be sent to a department who determines if you would qualify. Once you're granted your classified access, there should be supervisors and other people in your chain of command to ensure that you properly use that access.
And yet, when we look at just some of the information that we currently have on this young man, it appears he wasn't a spy. He was a young man who was showing off to other young men, and they all had similar interests on this sort of chat site, Discord.
That's right. The complaint that was filed against him that was released doesn't indicate that he was engaged in this for the purposes of espionage. But there have been some prior reports that there were some anti-government statements made or other sort of conduct. That's what's going to be investigated next. Was he disclosing this information with the intent that it could be used against the United States or some other foreign ally?
I suppose the big question is how do they, I mean, of course, they're going through a whole process now of reevaluating the systems. But given this has happened before in the last decade, how do they ensure this doesn't happen again? And how do they also ensure that others aren't currently doing the same thing?
This is going to take more than executive orders and promises. We have the General Petraeus case from many years ago with a general who was accused of improperly handling classified information. We have two presidents of the United States who've been accused in their special counsel investigations for mishandling classified information. This is going to take a robust review at all levels of government to ensure that only people who need access and can be responsible for handling access get access to classified information. And I'm sure the government is going to take significant steps after this case to ensure that that's done.
Ronald Chapman, thank you so much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you.